Okay. And then share my screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Cool. So getting started with project updates. For the upstream Kubernetes 6 Karpenter, we have released 1.1. So please make sure to go check that out. And as well for the AWS provider, we've also released a 1.1 version for that. Please make sure that you follow the migration guide that we have in our documentation for that for the upgrade process. We have some interesting features there, like node repair. The node repair, there has been some much needed performance improvements that was released. There was also one other change with grouping for pods on termination. If you're excited about these features, please upgrade to 1.1 and check it out. Uh, that's the main updates that we have, at least from the Kubernetes 6 community, from Kubernetes 6 as well as the AWS provider. Any updates from any other cloud providers? Okay.
Nothing from Azure at the time. A quick question on 1.1. It gets rid of the webhooks. I presume going forward would still need at least a conversion webhook. I'm assuming the plan is to re-implement them without Knative. Is that correct?
So there is no conversion webhook. So the idea was to make sure that all conversion happens at 1.0. So customers would upgrade from 37 or from 33, any V1 beta 1 version to 1.0, get all of their resources converted, and then switch over to 1.1, and then going forward, use V1 thereafter.
Now, so that part is understood. I presume that going forward with an evolution of API, there may be need for webhooks again, like conversion webhooks. I presume at that point would want to implement them, using something other than Knative for the mechanism. Is that the plan?
Yeah, that is the plan. We right now we don't have any plans of reintroducing conversion webhooks, but if we were to do it in the future, yes.
Yeah, I think the biggest benefit we saw from the Knative webhooks was that you get auto reconciliation of certs. And we could probably, honestly, there should probably be an upstream control runtime implementation of auto reconciliation of certs, like self-signed certificates. It's a little bit annoying that every time you want to run like a conversion webhook, you have to install the cert manager,
Yep.
which we've been trying to avoid generally. But we also don't want to take the entire dependency closure of Knative because that's also been super painful. So I think we can cross that bridge when we get there. Like maybe it's worth an issue. I don't know. I don't think there is an issue in control runtime. It may be worth opening one just for that specific problem. So when we get there, we don't have to hit this wall.
Sounds good. Yeah, and for the record, we also run into issues with Knative, so happy to see that go. Yeah, and I agree. Let's cross this bridge when we get there. Thank you.
Cool. I guess now moving on to RFCs. Upstream in the upstream provider and Kubernetes 6 provider, there isn't any RFCs, nothing as well in the AWS provider. Any RFCs to call out from any other cloud providers? Okay, if none, then let's just move on to a community question. It seems like the first one is about proposing social media presence for the Karpenter community. Ling, do you want to describe more?
Hey, it's Ling here. And actually, I'm just follow up the updates of Karpenter project recently. And I think because I'm not a developer, but I also want to contribute to the Karpenter community. So I think, is it possible to create a X or LinkedIn account to build a Karpenter's social media presence and like build a collection of some Karpenter's tutorials and Karpenter's best practices, because we all know that many developers wrote best practice or or tutorials every week on the platforms like Medium, and I think we should build this account and repost their blog or their tutorial like this. And also we can highlight the Karpenter's key features or benefits in the social media account. So this what I want to contribute.
Yeah, I think that sounds nice, and I think that would be very beneficial to a lot of people, especially people that are trying to get into the community. Um, I think I would suggest probably the best path moving forward would potentially be to raise an issue and put up a RFC. That way that you can get more community engagement, and at least be your, starting point. Lamiko, you have something to add?
Yeah, I think your suggestion is great, Emmanuel. I think we should also reach out to SIG ContribX to ask them about messaging and communications, because I think Ling's suggestion is a good one, but managing communications for an open source project over time can become complicated. And I would want to make sure that if we do that, especially for the Kubernetes SIGs, contributed Karpenter, that we have a good plan in place for like where the social media account is going to be, is going to come from, how we're going to generate updates for it, what the maintenance plan is over time for it. So hopefully those things would be in the proposal that you're talking about, Emmanuel and Ling. But I think getting SIG ContribX involved could get some really good insight from people who've done this in the Kubernetes community before. So I would love to see that.
Okay. So I will open an issue or RFC later in Karpenter community, and then maybe we can discuss this about in the Kubernetes SIG. Yes, that's right.
I think that sounds like a great idea, Ling.
Okay. And that's all my proposal.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Jonathan, you want to talk about path to reviewer / maintainership?
Yeah, I wanna address like a like semi-big elephant in the room, which is that like we don't have enough people to like review things right now. And I'm curious to like just take a pulse from the room on like is anyone here interested in like getting reviewer status, and is it clear on how to do that, and how can like we as maintainers like help people get there? And I'm curious from like people like Amiko who have more like are actively involved in other projects, and yeah, because I think right now what we're struggling with is keeping up with load. Like people are proposing features and issues, and like we can't keep up with it, frankly. And there's all this, community discussion. I think we used to be very, very good at keeping up with all the community discussion, and now we can't keep up with it. Some of that has to do with just like some of the maintainers are less involved nowadays as a result of different things. But yeah, I think we're kind of struggling for people right now. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on if it's clear on how to get there, if you want to get involved, or if it's just a matter of, no one's interested, and that's fine. We'll just keep chugging along.
I was just looking at I was trying to look up the Karpenter stuff that we have in Kubernetes SIGs to see what do we have there currently for like a contributing doc and whatnot. Like we do have contributing guidelines and stuff like that there. It's pretty extensive. At a guess, like I think we're suffering the same problem that many projects are, which is just like you said, Jonathan, there's just not enough people to go around. So the question is like, how do we uplift people who might want to be doing this work? Are we using like the help wanted and good for new people or good for newcomers labels on our issues and PRs and whatnot?
Yeah, I think triage has been a little bit of a mess. Like I think we need to get back on triaging issues appropriately, because I think that's just been thrown to the wayside a little bit more recently. So I think some of that's on the maintainers. Like we haven't been doing a great job at doing triage. But it's a good point. Like, I mean, there are some good first issues, but I think over the last little while, we haven't had a ton. I guess like there's literally two in the upstream repo.
Yeah,
So,
and
not enough.
turn triage into a group activity. You know, like we have 2 community meetings, and I hate to like suggest adding more community meetings, but like I can see the backlog is growing, and we do have a good number of issues there.
Yep.
But could we propose like a meeting where we could get the community involved on, you know, triage together or something?
I'm for that. Like, I think it's a good idea. We probably want to do it like sometime over the next week or two before everyone goes off. If we're kind of trying to do it before the end of the year, which I think is probably a good idea. Like, it might be a good end of year activity before everyone goes on vacation. I'm all for that.
Another thought too, and this is something that like myself and Bryce and Wei from Cloud Pilot have been talking about is we've got a couple talks proposed for KubeCon coming up about how to build Karpenter providers and whatnot. So I think that's another way to kind of get developers involved in the project. Is like if we could, you know, we've got a couple talks proposed for KubeCon. We could also talk to SIG Autoscaling about proposing a maintainer track talk or workshop about like how to build a Karpenter provider. I think these are other ways to get more people involved, and then, you know, we could have a durable record of like, here's a video about how you build a provider. And so that's another way to kind of get more developers involved.
Yeah, there's also a discussion, and I mean, I think some people want to get involved in talks too. I'm just seeing the discussions going on in the Zoom, and one thing is like the docs I mean, we've talked about this for a while. I think it just hasn't been prioritized. Like, the docs currently sit in the AWS provider repo, and we want to eventually push it out. And it's kind of unclear, like, if I'm trying to do something like a generic metric implementation, like this person, like Vishal's talking about, like wanting to contribute like insights he's had about how to build a Grafana dashboard or add additional, like, basically monitoring. How do I monitor with Karpenter? Like, there's something on the provider side, but maybe not something on the upstream side. So it's a little unclear where to go.
Oh, sorry. Maybe from like just a general project management, like maybe we need someone to just dedicate themselves to like tracking issues coming in and be like, someone will answer this and, oh, we're gonna do this and stuff like that, because I think it's very hard to keep track of everything coming in, and not everything is important. And maybe doing the upfront work of like, oh, triaging, hey, is this worth doing, or is this doing later, or we're not gonna do it for now. It might be worthwhile so that we can just slow the flow to things that we really want to work on. And it sometimes does feel like the AWS crew has specific priorities themselves, and then the community has maybe some other demands, and it's hard to like interleave the two from the outside looking in. I don't know if like a more public roadmap would make more sense, so that we can like figure out like, oh, these things are coming on, these are some asks from outside, when's things gonna get, you know, into the pipeline, stuff like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I think that makes sense. I don't know how, like, how does Cappy do it? Amika?
Yeah, so Cappy, you know, we have project teams for each of the separate providers. So in a similar respect to here, and then the core project, you know, we have a group that does triaging on a regular basis. And we also have a release team as well that's set up to look at like the CI and the release infrastructure to make sure all that stuff is kind of on pace. And then we also have an enhancement process as well. So when people want to bring big ideas, you know, we suggest them to make enhancements, and then, you know, we kind of do the review work in the enhancements. And then, you know, Cluster API is large enough that we also have a feature group process as well. So when people are like designing big features, we have them, you know, create feature groups where they might go and do some work to understand the problem and then bring it back. But given where Karpenter is, I mean, it seems like we need to set up a regular triage meeting so we can start going through that. I think some of the things Garvin is suggesting are amazing as well. Like having like a roadmap, or having just a very clear way for users to come to the project and say, hey, look, this is where we're planning on going. This is like kind of the resources we have working on this stuff right now. And so like, if you've got an issue, create an issue. we'll try to get to it within this amount of time or something, giving people an understanding of what they can expect. And, I think it's totally natural that all of us have, we have goals that are kind of placed on us by our employers and whatnot that don't necessarily mesh perfectly with the upstream, goals that we're trying to generate as a community. So I think having these things in the open, broadcasting, our availability and our ability to work on this stuff helps people understand the cadence of the project. And it'll also help to understand where our gaps are too. So I think making some of these small changes now will make a big difference.
Cool. Yes, but I think, okay. Yeah, I think those are good suggestions. I think we can, minimally, we can look at just doing a triage meeting. Like starting next week or the week after. Like find a time.
Yeah, or if we notice, like, I don't know, like these meetings are an hour. I don't know how we've been running for time on these. We might designate half of one of these meetings, to say we're going to do triage for half the meeting or something, just so that we can start to make progress on it or whatever, without having to set up a new meeting or something for it. I don't know. I don't know how busy these meetings have been the last couple of weeks. Okay, yeah. So Vishal, if the last one was pretty brief, like if we decide as a group, we say like, okay, we're going to dedicate, some amount of time to doing a triage, however many issues we can get through at the end of one of these meetings, or, for some amount of time in a meeting, that would at least help us to break the logjam a little bit.
Cool. Sweet. Super helpful feedback. Appreciate it.
Okay, sounds good. Is there any other community questions? Okay. So seeing none, we have, I guess, based off of that feedback, we have two options. We could do a triaging now, or we could call the meeting and then set up a time for in the coming weeks, maybe next week or maybe even later this week for a triage session.
I mean, if people are up for it now, yeah, we should I would say like Emmanuel, like, share up the issues page, and yeah, maybe we can I'm looking at it now. There's a couple here that are at the top that need triage, but like these haven't been touched since August or whatever, right? So even if we just look at like, the first issue and just kind of go from there and say, okay, oh, sorry, I was looking at the next page. Sorry, some of these are newer, but maybe we could just add some comments on these and kind of get them moving, I don't know if we've got do we have the right people here for this though? That's the real question.
I'm personally gonna vote that we just like specifically schedule a meeting for it. Just so that everyone like that wants to participate can be here. It can be later this week. Like I don't think we should push it off super far. Because I also don't want to like leave and then not forget about this, obviously. So yeah, if we can do another time, I think that would be good. Let's just like get something on the calendar pretty quick, in my opinion.
Okay. Cool. That sounds.
I guess one thing I would add is we should figure out how we want to triage, because it's not just like look at issues that's coming in and like adding comments and whatnot, but it's like how do we figure out if something's in demand or something needs to be done, and how to prioritize this, because we don't have a process for that yet. I guess you guys might have a process for triaging, but a general open process for like how to go on the triage. So before whenever we have the triage meeting, we should figure that out.
It seems to go hand in hand with the roadmap. Like I think that
Mhm.
you talk about like close, short-term, long-term. I mean, that's just like very high-level buckets, but like we could be more granular than that. But something
Right.
like that, I think makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I think something worthwhile to discuss and probably potentially even have an agenda for the triage meeting would be an ideal. Okay, cool. But on that note, I think we can call this meeting to an end then, unless anybody else has anything else to add.
Let me think one information. I add just that Karpenter sensor landscape. Wait. Yeah.
So at the next KubeCon, that graphic is going to get even bigger now with like one more icon in there. Thank you, Wei.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Okay. Is- Guess it doesn't show up well here. Okay. It's definitely, hopefully people make sure to check it out. Yeah. And if there's nothing else to add, then I think we can call it a meeting. Cool. Sounds good. Have a good rest of your week, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Cool. Thank you.